Hey guys, how's it going today? I'm gonna be going over another book review. This one is called "The World Is Flat: The Globalized World in the 21st Century" by Thomas Friedman. He's a highly well known editor. He works for the New York Times and stuff. I'm gonna actually read some of the stuff that they'll list here, right? So he's won a Pulitzer Prize 3 times and stuff. He's written as well some other really well-known books, as The Lexus and the Olive Tree: Understanding Globalization, and Longitudes and Attitudes: Exploring the World After September 11. Um, as well as he's been named America's best leaders. Um, by the U.S. News and World Report. So he's a really well-known academic, right? So he wrote the story about the idea that the world's flat, right? So I'm going to explain basically the 10 forces which, so he explained why the world is flat and stuff, which I got from the book. And then I'm going to argue the antithesis of this, which I think he hasn't actually included in this book, which another famous author has included, right? So, according to Thomas Friedman, right, the 10 reasons why the world has basically flattened out as like as a more globalized world, right? The first reason he says is that after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was November 9th, in 1989, right? He said with that, of course, came the spread, of course, of more democratic, consensual, free market oriented governance, moving away from the authoritarian centralized rule with planned economics, right? Now that's not totally true even, because if you look at China, they really still have a really tight held communist government, right? So and they seem to be doing okay, right? Of course, they have a capitalist economics when it comes to like capitalism, but a lot of their trade or like a lot of their business is done through the Chinese government, right? So in that respect, he's not all right. Now the second force why he said the world is flat basically was he points out in August 9th, 1995, when of course Tim Berners-Lee, who is the founding father of the World Wide Web, created the hypertext protocol, which is the HTTP, and that's what we like use nowadays on the internet, right? Now I think Berners-Lee has done a remarkable job. He's like thanks to the HTTP, as well as Vint Cerf and Bob Cahn's invention of the internet, basically, right? They've actually really, in my sense, democratized the world in terms of information, at least, because it puts the individual in the with the power, it makes stuff. I mean, of course, there are a lot of black swan prone scenarios and stuff, but I think with the internet, think about it, nowadays you can go on the like Google and search almost anything you want, so now of course there though does still exist digital divide, but that's even coming lower and lower and smaller. So hopefully soon everyone around the world will have the access to the internet, and that'll be a wonderful thing, really, truly remarkable. Now the third reason why Thomas Friedman said that the world is flat, basically, was that he'll point out the workflow software. So where he explains the simple mail transfer protocol, which enable email, And of course with the like email, right? Now we can send messages and stuff around the world just like that and stuff. I can send my friend O in Spain a message, and he or she will also receive it and send it back to me. So if you think about how we can now communicate in this interrelated world, basically, right? Interdependent world, right? Fascinating. Never done before ever in the history of mankind, right? Number 4, he lists some uploading, right? And this is where he'll list some of the other really important tools that helped the world more as one. He lists like the PayPal, with the invention of the PayPal, by yeah, and then he lists like the Wikipedia, which is a community uploaded content, right? Wikipedia, I think in spite of what anyone says, I actually regard Wikipedia as basically foundational informational resource website, basically, right? Where you can just go on there and you can just read whatever you want, and you get the basic understanding of stuff, right? And so I think I read actually Wikipedia every single day, and I don't see why it's wrong at all. Of course, it's not the academic peer-reviewed articles, right? So if you're more into, if you're studying, of course, or if you go to university, they will also teach you, of course, to search more academic peer-reviewed articles, But in terms of just, basic informational resource, I would say Wikipedia is probably the best, really, thanks to Jimmy Wells, and the other and his co-partner. Those are two guys who actually founded Wikipedia, right? Now, number 6, he writes offshoring, right? So Thomas Friedman talks here about China, and that in 2001 China joined the World Trade Organization, basically, right? And what they did basically is that then they enabled foreign companies to actually establish factories within China, basically, so that they could produce their products in China, right? And China promised for cheap labor, as well as they had to promise to abide by international law and by standard business practices, right? Now, here again, I will argue that it's not that simple in this case, right? We all know about the Foxconn incident with the Apple with Apple gadgets being produced in Foxconn, Taiwan, and how a lot of the workers were actually working over hours. They weren't getting paid much, There were some below 18-year-old workers as well, right? So it's a really big assumption, I do believe, as though Friedman said, there are some companies which though maybe ethically do standard business practices and do abide by international law, but to the generalize in that sense is quite erroneous, I think. And then number 7, he writes about the supply chain, and Thomas Friedman outlines Walmart, which was founded by Sam Walton, another great entrepreneur, right? Now, of course, Walmart, I'm not sure nowadays, right? But I think in 2008, it was the richest company in the world. And it's funny, right? In 2008 or something, Walmart earned more net income profits than the entire country of Norway. So you can see how humongous Walmart is, Now, of course, when he talks about this supply chain with the Walmart, right? Thomas Friedman labels that Walmart owns its entire supply chain, right? So they they have eliminated out the middleman, right? And they own everything, right? Thomas Friedman goes in that it's more efficient that way, and that it's more global based, and that Walmart now has global cooperation with its suppliers as well, etc. Right? Um, with that as well, it may resort in more efficiency, but there is a problem with that as well, and I'll explain it later. Now, number 8, he goes into inshoring, right? No, sorry, in sourcing, and he labels Friedman talks about the universal postal service, UPS, right? And how it's to like to help expand around the globe as well as within the U.S. UPS, sending parcels throughout the U.S. And how there's like and how there are companies now which send like the products from like a manufacturing building all the way to its consumers, right? And of course he is right. It's really enabled the facilitation of the consumer to not have to go to a manufacturing building and actually get the product, but have the product shipped to it. So it's really enabled convenience, basically, right? In the world. Now, number 9, he talks about informing, right? Where he mentions large global conglomerates like large global companies like Google, Yahoo, and MSN, right? Now, of course, right, Google in terms of search, right? Think about it, right? Almost Google almost dominates basically the search engine nowadays, right? There are some other ones like Bing, founded by Microsoft, and a bunch of other ones, Trojan, I think, Trojan or something as well. Then when it comes to Yahoo as well, right? He talks about Yahoo basically, and MSN. Also, we have now like these places where you can go online basically, and you can mail stuff. You also get news, online and stuff. Although I will argue that the news presented on Yahoo is quite irrelevant most of the time to our lives, basically. But yeah, but it's a good thing, what he mentions. And then of course, lastly, Friedman talks about the steroids, and he talks about the digital world which we live in today. Mobile phones, of course, Google, mobile phones, personal phones, basically, laptops, iPads, virtual. What he means by that is like Skype calling. Now nowadays you can call on Skype. So we have all these tools basically which still help us better communicate, increase efficiency, make the world easier now for people. It's also green, sort of, because we don't have to use papers, which of course means we don't have to kill trees and stuff. So that also helps, right? Now, I get what Thomas Friedman is trying to say here, right? That in some sense the world has become flat. Nevertheless, the antithesis of this idea that the world is flat is that he's quite wrong, really, in the sense that if you read the book The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, right, he talks about how Thomas Friedman. Well, actually, if you read the book Anti-Fragile, sorry, not The Black Swan, right? If you read the book Anti-Fragile, right, but Nassim Taleb says this as well in his book The Black Swan. He says that the issue with Thomas Friedman is that he doesn't understand that the when he says the world is flat, he's trying to say, that though any business has an opportunity to thrive, right? And that may be so, but as though Nassim has also pointed out, right, in the socio-economic space, right, really, we're in a world nowadays which is more complex, which is being dominated by the most extremes. That's why when you look at Google, for instance, right, how they to dominate the world in terms of search engine, right, and you look at these humongous companies who have like a monopoly say basically on a lot of what happens, right? And so Friedman doesn't add that into his argument, right? As well, Friedman also leaves out the law of area square, I think it's called. Nassim Taleb talks about this, and what it means basically is that there's more diversity on an island than there is on an entire continent, right? So by having a globalized world, basically, what it's doing is that it's actually killing diversity in the sense that mostly everyone nowadays speaks English, or they speak broken English, either one. Mostly everyone nowadays uses Google, right? Even if you're in China, you can still download a certain proxy and use still YouTube, Google, etc. Right? Almost everyone nowadays studies a lot of the same stuff, right? In our university courses, right? I'm not trying to generalize over the whole globe, but that's what that law states, basically, right? That as the globe becomes more one, integrated, diversity goes down, as well as Nassim Taleb pointed out something really remarkable from his friend Dmitry Orlov, who was an ex-Soviet, and he Dmitry Orlov, found out this one phenomenon called the social breakdown to robustness, right? In the sense that Dmitry Orlov said that in the Soviet Union, right, Stalin tried to optimize agriculture, right, and he failed, right, and he had to kill a lot of farmers for that. Now, the world that we live in today, basically, right, we have to optimize agriculture, right. But what that's caused, basically, right, is that we get our food from the grocery market, right? Most people nowadays don't even grow their food anymore, right? So by going to the grocery market, right, it's actually contributing to climate change, because greenhouse gas emissions rise as we eat fruits from every season now. We can eat fruits whenever we want from any season, as well as food miles. Food miles basically are the miles which we pay to have people transfer food from one country to another country, right? And that also contributes to climate change, right? As well as Dmitry Orlov said, that with our friends, for instance, right, back in the Soviet Union, basically, right, family members and friends used to live almost always in the same building, right, and that would cause them to grow crops for the whole season around them, right, so they would have food basically for them for the whole season, right, in their certain seasons, right. But the wonderful thing about that, right, is that people living under the same roof for years, basically, establish real personal links. So it means, of course, Nassim points out as well that when they wanted to do some stuff like sex or something, they would have to do it on like a stairwell, right? But at least they knew each other, right? But Dmitry Orlov points out that nowadays with this whole internet social media thing, right, most of our Facebooks are actually online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right, and so by ignoring us, they can just stop answering our messages, right? So with this new 21st century social networking, right? We don't have the same links. We don't have the same strong friendship links, as we once had. Not to say that, of course, people still have their like best friends and they still meet them every day, right? But if you look at it from like more of like an overall view base, right? The links between our friends base, are not as strong as they were in the 20th century Soviet Union, right? So so that's something that's also changed, right? Um, and Yeah, and that's about it though. And the book as well, fails to also um, put to remark the fragile world which we currently live in. So we have companies nowadays too big to fail, basically, right? Which of course seems more efficient, right? But then if there's a big black swan scenario, well then it all blows up, right? And of course, Nassim points this out with the Lehman Brothers, with the United States Federal Reserve, etc. So more on that, in his book, The Black Swan is called, which is really a really extraordinary book, a really important book to actually have in mind. So to end it there, basically, I just like to say that that though this is though a really though fascinating book, though it is a useful book in the sense that Thomas Friedman does talk about a lot of the new 21st century technologies and the 21st century communication base, right? And how that's helped us, and what it's done, But there are some other not so good stuff, which I've just said, But yeah, this book is 11 pounds, so it's not much, basically. And I hope you guys get the book. If you guys are interested in it, leave me a statement here below, or leave me any questions which you guys have, and I'll be happy to answer it. And I'll see you guys on the next book review.